Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about estoppel certificates today because there were some things that I didn't mention. One of the reasons we want to do these estoppels is because otherwise they have a good faith that they can do it and get away with it. And that's what I wanted to talk about. And we already talked about the estoppel, so I'm going to kind of breeze through this. They don't want anybody with high intelligence, first of all. That's what this one's talking about. They screen out intelligent people in the hiring process. I think I already showed you this, Jordan versus City of New London. Yeah. U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit.
Glenn, that must be something new, because when I joined with an IQ of 140.
Yeah, it is relatively new. It is relatively new.
Might be.
Yeah. Okay.
And it might be America, too.
No, I think they're probably doing the same in the UK now.
Oh, you think so?
They're running the same
They
training.
want knuckle draggers?
Yeah, they're running the same training.
They just want people to follow orders.
Yeah.
Their process of it.
So Mark Passio talks about the order followers. This is Canadian Criminal Code, the Criminal Code of Canada, where a person's required or authorized by law to execute a process or to carry out a sentence. That person or any person who assists them is, if that person acts in good faith. If I believe that what I'm doing is right. Justified in executing the process or carrying out the sentence, notwithstanding that the process or sentence is defective or that it was issued or imposed without jurisdiction or in excess of jurisdiction. And there's just about, this is Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. A court shall presume that a pleading motion or other paper is filed in good faith.
How would you define excess of jurisdiction?
Everything they do is excess of jurisdiction, if you think about it.
Well, I mean, it's just,
They're a bunch of thieves and pirates.
I understand, but I mean, if they have no jurisdiction, how can...
That's an excess of jurisdiction then, isn't it?
Yeah, technically, they're exceeding it.
This is again Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. No evidence obtained by an officer or other person in violation of any provision of the Constitution or laws of the state of Texas or the Constitution or laws of the United States of America shall be admitted in evidence against the accused on the trial of any criminal case. It is an exception. Boy, that just nullified. Paragraph B basically nullifies paragraph A. It is an exception to the provisions of subsection A of this article that the evidence was obtained by a law enforcement officer acting in objective good faith. He's a brain-dead idiot, and he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Brain-dead idiot.
Brain-dead idiot. They're all brain-dead idiots. Well, I wouldn't say all of them. Some of them actually have some brain cells, but they end up leaving because they get eased out of there because they don't want anybody with intelligence around there. Anyways, when a judgment and sentence have been entered against the defendant and the defendant defaults in the discharge of the judgment, the judge may order the defendant confined in jail until discharged by law if the judge at a hearing makes a written determination that the defendant is not indigent and has failed to make a good faith effort to discharge the fine. I mean, good faith is all over their statutes. A court may not order a defendant confined under subsection A of this article unless the court at the hearing makes a written determination that the defendant is not indigent and has failed to make a good faith effort. Same thing. California Penal Code. No cause of action shall be brought against any provider, its officers, employees, or agents for providing information, facilities, or assistance in good faith compliance with a search warrant. So they can sit there and think, you know, well, we know these courts are all bogus, but we got a piece of paper here, so we're going to go ahead and do it.
That's what they told me.
Yeah.
The judge signed this.
See?
So we
you got to defeat.
kick your ass, beat you up, and
That's
put
right.
you in jail.
That's right. That's right.
I got this paper.
You got to take away their good faith, and you got to do it in a way that everybody knows, and file a criminal complaint against them. And in the criminal complaint, you got to say, I took away their good faith, and they did it anyways. And show that statute. So there's going to be a similar statute. What state are you in?
New York State.
In New York. Guaranteed. Guaranteed there's a similar statute in New York. Matter of fact, I might have one here. Arizona. A person who acts in good faith with a reasonable manner to comply with an order of the court or request of a peace officer is not liable to pay to any person for acts done in compliance with the order or request. Oklahoma. The state or local governmental agency or law enforcement officer, prosecuting attorney, clerk of the court, or any state or local governmental official acting in an official capacity is immune from civil or criminal liability for any act or omission arising out of the registration or enforcement of a foreign protection order or the detention or arrest of an alleged violator of a foreign protection order if the act or omission was done in good faith. New Mexico. No peace officer shall be held criminally or civilly liable for making an arrest pursuant to this section, provided he acts in good faith.
Good faith.
It's always good faith.
How do they define it?
Good faith.
There's actually court cases that talk about it.
They've been told that what they need to do, this is what authority they have, they're acting in good faith, that authority is correct.
Right. Oh, okay.
And then, whatever they do is protected. However, the document that I was talking about this morning shows them that it's not in good faith anymore, because you just told them.
Well, and you send them a notice and demand to their chief of police, and now none of them are operating in good faith, because it's his duty to make sure they know.
Nice.
That's why I serve it on the chief of police, the county sheriff. Everything changes. The party to the conflict, this is Article 29 of the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of civilians in a time of war of 1949. The party to the conflict in whose hands protected persons may be is responsible for the treatment accorded to them by its agents, irrespective of any individual responsibility which may be incurred. In other words, in my opinion, they're putting that good faith thing in there so they can get their hired thugs off the hook, personally, okay? But the corporation's still responsible under the international agreements, and that's the argument, okay? The corporation's still responsible under international agreements, and it's war crimes that they're engaged in.
Personally or monetarily, like.
Well, the only way you can go after a corporation is financial.
Right. So
How are you gonna go and get the officers of the corporation and string them up in the street over here?
That's a thought.
That'd be nice. I'd like to.
It's brown on that sort of thing.
they hide behind that corporation.
Exactly.
shield.
That's exactly what they do. You're right.
That's why they established it to begin with.
So the burden's on you to assert your rights. If you do not assert your rights, you lose. If they're talking to you, they're building a case against you. That's the way you got to look at it.
Yes.
If they're talking to you, they're building a case against you. Start building a case against them. Because we're under martial law, the courts presume everything. If you go on the attack, you can defeat their presumptions. If this procedure is followed properly, the system will deal with any criminals that are exposed. Watch the martial laws here video. And then it goes into some stuff about qualified immunity. A plaintiff who seeks damages for violation of constitutional rights or statutory rights may overcome the defendant official's qualified immunity only by showing those rights were clearly established at the time of the conduct and issue. If you serve them with this document, a notice and demand that's designed to take away their presumptions, then that's evidence. It's by registered mail. Registered mail is kept under lock and key. They want to debate it. Let's get the postmaster in here. I guarantee you they're not going to want to debate it. So you can circumvent or pierce their immunity. This is what it's come to. Bunch of pirates and thieves. And so it's talking about the one that we talked about yesterday, asserting sovereignty, and I think that's pretty well, the rest of the stuff I've pretty well gone through. The rest of the stuff we covered yesterday. Another one I want to go through right now is the state of Texas doesn't exist.
Does New York State exist?
We have to do the research ourselves and find it.
None of them
No, it
exist.
doesn't.
None of them
Glenn,
exist.
have you ever researched
None of
the
them.
fact that the Constitution, just like a deed, it describes the boundaries of the land that the deed relates to. The constitutions used to. They don't any longer. So the constitutions have really been nullified because they don't specifically define the geographic limits to which that constitution applies. I'm talking state constitution.
Well, I think it comes down to really, at the end of the day, I mean, that one of the most important parts of the Constitution was the voters, and the fact that it had to be the landowners.
Right. Yeah, but
And so
again,
they defeated it by all of that. With the Reconstruction Acts, everything was turned upside down. Watch my video about that. I just uploaded it. I mean, we can go through that. Republic equals, I should say, martial law equals democracy. That's the name of the video. And
that's the name of the video.
and the video is talking about a Attorney General's opinion, and it goes through. I've got a 16-page Attorney General's opinion, and he goes through and explains all about the Reconstruction Acts.
Right.
And it's from like 1861 or 1865 or something like that.
Well, about the time
I've got the Attorney General's opinion here. We can look at it briefly if you like.
Are you still gonna do the presentation on the guy that was in jail and got himself out and 17 others?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Pronto? You ready?
Yeah, I'll show you what one package looks like, and I'm gonna stuff my face and get ready to go. If you have to go back to, I can have a local printing place to get it right. Okay?
You don't have a printer here?
This is that Attorney General's opinion.
I have 6
It'd be easier for me to go somewhere.
It's 1867. Anyways, I go through that video. It's a 16-page opinion, so I don't really want to go through it. I mean, I go through it in that video, but it's June 12th, 1867. Says to the President, I had the honor to transmit for your consideration my opinion upon some of the questions arising under the Reconstruction Acts therein referred to. I now proceed to give my opinion on the remaining 183 or star 183. I guess that's, I'm not sure. Maybe something to do. It's actually in the book. It's page 182 of the book of the Attorney General's opinion. So it starts at page 183. Start at page 182. That's what that is. Questions upon the military commanders require instructions as to the powers and duties of the commanders, and he goes through, and it's 16 pages. Right? Or it's 15. See at the bottom there, it says 2 of 15. So I've got a video about it. I go through some of it. I don't go through the whole thing because it's 15 pages. You don't want me to sit there and read the whole thing. And so, but there's some, it sets up all of the courts, not the courts, it sets up the elections and the military governments that were under to this day.
This isn't your, there is no state of Texas video. I don't remember this in that. Is this in?
This is in the video called, it's called, let me,
Martial law is here.
martial law is democracy. Martial law equals democracy.
Ah, that one I didn't watch. Okay, thank you.
Martial law equals democracy, right there. So it's 2 hours long. But I attached a video that someone else did at the end that is worth listening to. because he talks about the southern states and his opinion of why they left the Union. It's interesting. Anyways, so, and there's the 3 Boris videos. So that's that Attorney General's opinion. It's on the group, it's on the Yahoo group, you can download it. Okay, so we'll do the state of Texas doesn't exist. This is not a very, well, it's, yes, it can be. It's 125 slides, but we should go through it pretty quick. Anyways, I'm not a liar. Well, I mean a lawyer. No, that's a liar. They're all liars. Anyways, you should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm certainly open to ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure?
Wait. The first one was again?
There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. If you can see through the illusion, then you're part of the solution. So just seeing through the illusion is half the battle.
If anybody gets too hot, let me know, I'll turn it down.
Can you turn it down?
Probably
It's a natural
Some people in the back. Okay, thank you.
Throw some of it in the other room.
I can't do that, I don't know how to.
It's all going out the door, that's why.
My nose hairs are getting crisp.
Okay. If the people did not know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? And that's the biggest thing that I've seen, is most people don't have any idea when their rights get violated. They're just like...
Yes, true.
Right, exactly.
Well, that was my prime example with that little CBS skit where that false cop asking people to give one hand over their ID or whatever else.
There you go. Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at cops.
That's
what they did.
You can't dispute it.
True freedom does not equal government politics. Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. Truth is treason in the empire of lies. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for good people, people of good conscience, to remain silent. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administering Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos and with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forums. Actually, there's more like 100 searchable law dictionaries. And forums and contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com, and donations are appreciated. This is... Notice it's from the Secretary of State from the state of Texas, a certificate of fact. Signed by the Secretary of State on, and notice the date, September 18, 2018. And we're actually going to get a little closer here. Let's get a little closer and so we can read it. It says, the undersigned as Secretary of State of Texas hereby certifies that a diligent search of the records of this office was performed on the name, the state of Texas. So it's searched on the name, the state of Texas. It is further certified that the search revealed the following. There is no record of a domestic corporation, professional association, limited partnership, limited liability partnership, or limited liability company by the name searched. There is no record of a foreign corporation, professional association, limited partnership, limited liability partnership, limited liability company, business trust, real estate investment trust, or other foreign filing entity with a registration to transact business by the name searched. There is no record of an out-of-state financial institution registration by the name searched. There is no record to indicate that a designation of agent for service of process is on file for a Texas financial institution, unincorporated nonprofit association, or a defense-based development authority by the name searched. However, the following entities with names similar to the name searched were found. State of Texas is an assumed name for Deer Park Cash Cow, LLC.
That's fabulous.
Huh?
That's fabulous.
And it's dated September 18, 2018. And notice, let's go back to the beginning. Office of the Secretary of State. Okay, the undersigned Secretary of State of Texas. Okay? It doesn't say Secretary of State of the State of Texas. It just says Secretary of State of Texas. Some people have asked me, does Texas need to be registered here? Well, if they're going to do business, yes, they do. You know, the state of Texas, the corporation, if they're going to be doing business, they got to be registered.
Technically, that supports our assertions that we can put the overcoat on and take it off. The state,
Well,
lowercase state
keep listening.
of Texas is the
Keep listening.
Okay.
Deer Park Cash Cow. Assumed name, it owns two assumed names, one state of Texas, active in all counties, and one Cash Cow Pond, active in all counties. They were both, date of filing was set up in 2010, so it's good for 10 years. This is the name, Deer Park Cash Cow, LLC, which was November 5th, 2010 when it was registered. This is the business organizations, the filing history. And for Deer Park Cash Cow, so the certificate of formation is November 5th, 2010. And, you know, you can see all of these documents that have been filed into the county, or into the Secretary of State's office since then. Now, there's a registered agent's office that was filed. There's a change of name, a certificate of assumed business name. There's a bunch of them. Anyways, the interesting thing here is the Deer Park Cash Cow, the manager is called Madison Inc. And notice it's 3505 Kingston Drive.
So did you pull up Madison Inc.?
We're not done.
Oh, okay. I'm with you.
This is Deer Park Cash Cow. The registered agent for Deer Park Cash Cow is Ashley Management Inc.
So they're using corporations to back up corporations.
Of course, they don't want anybody's name. Of course, we do find some names.
Shell company.
This is Madison Inc. The director of management, Madison Inc., is Derek S. Muntz. That's 3505 Kingswood Drive. That's the same address that Deer Park Cash Cow is to, right?
It's a residential location.
Probably is.
It is. One of them is northwest of, Dallas or Houston, and the other one is southeast.
They're both down by Houston, I think.
Okay, one of them is northwest.
Huntsville is northeast of Houston.
All right, then the other one is south. Friendswood would be south. I looked them up on the map when I was...
They got a tax ID too?
Anyways, Ashley Management Inc., it shows that Ashley Management Inc. is also is the registered agent for Madison Inc.
Ashley's probably so dark.
So Ashley Management Inc. is the registered agent for Deer Park Cash Cow and Madison Inc. And here is the filings for Madison Inc. Certificate of Formation 2007. This is the certificate of formation for Deer Park Cash Cow. It's pretty short. I tell you, it's 2 pages.
Right.
Now you know how short a certificate of formation can be. They can be very, very short and brief.
Absolutely.
Anyways, it shows that Ashley Management Inc. is the registered agent is actually the initial registered office. Now get a load of this. This is on page 2. Madison Inc. is the manager of Deer Park Cash Cow, and this Sharon Leal, who is in Austin, Texas, is the organizer, but she resigns as the organizer effective upon formation of the company. So she organizes it, and I'm done with it. This is a Texas Franchise Tax Public Information Report for Madison Inc. And it shows that that Ashley Management is the registered agent, and this is in 2011 for Deer Park Cash Cow, 3505 Kingston Drive in Friendswood, Texas. And it's got the signature of that's going to be the manager of Madison Inc. or the director of Madison Inc. This is going to be the signature. This is the statement of change of registered office. So Deer Park Cash Cow, the management was Ashley Management Inc. They moved from this 11th Street in Huntsville to 3001 Forest Lane in Huntsville. But it's interesting to note that this Derek Muntz comes up here as partner of Deer Park Cash Cow again. And then Deer Park Cash Cow is, the Madison Inc. is the owner, the member of Deer Park Cash Cow. Derek Muntz is a partner. He's signing for Madison Inc., I think. And Ashley Management is the registered agent. And
This is what, the tax filing?
this is Texas Franchise Tax Public Information Report, 2017. Assumed name certificate, Cash Cow Pawn. So Cash Cow Pawn is an assumed name for Deer Park Cash Cow. All counties. I'll bet it's a cash cow, eh? I'll bet it's a real cash cow. State of Texas has like trillions of dollars, I tell you. Derek Muntz is tied up with that thing again. Then we have the change of registered agent, Madison Inc. At 305 Kingswood Drive, Friendswood, Texas. And the registered office is, the new office is Ashley Management Inc. in Huntsville. This is another Texas Franchise Tax Public Information Report for Madison Inc. Shows Derek Muntz as the president, Linda Muntz, I guess that's his wife, Laura Muntz is his wife, she's the secretary treasurer, that's not surprising.
They probably got a daughter, Ashley, too.
And
Ashley Management.
probably Ashley Management Inc. in Huntsville. And here's his phone number. If you want to call him up, say hi, how's it going? How's state of Texas working out for you?
Hey, you can use my phone. I call him right now, put it on speaker.
This is 2008, and here's 2009. Same report, except it's 2009. He doesn't put his phone number there, but he's got his signature and the fact that he's president of Madison Inc. And anyways.
Yeah, ask me if he's building a wall because we want to emigrate to Texas. Here in New Jersey now.
And this is Madison Inc.'s filing in 2010. And he's got a different phone number here, so one of those phone numbers, maybe there's one as a cell phone, and, you know, who knows, eh?
That looks like a Houston number, was it 713?
Yeah, it could be. This is 2011 Texas Franchise Tax Public Information Request for 2011. It's all the same information again. Derek, Laura, you know, Madison Inc. This is the certificate of formation for Madison Inc. in 2007. And notice the initial registered office was Derek Muntz in Friendswood, Texas. And notice that Sharon Leal is involved with organizing that again. And Derek Muntz is the original board of directors. This is Madison Inc., the statement of change of registered office. So it went to Ashley Management Inc., moved from one place in Huntsville to another, and Derek Muntz is signing the bottom again. This is the Texas franchise for Madison Inc.,
Paid so much money, bought his daughter a new house.
That's 2017. Derek Muntz. Now it's 17 Wilderness Trail in Friendswood, Texas. It's hard to say. You know, one could be, it could be that Wilderness Trail could be the house. It could be some sort of post office box or something. Who knows? That's 2017. There's a nice phone number there for anybody who wants to call them up.
Right.
This is the registered agent information for 2011 for Ashley Management, Inc. Shows that they moved. That's all that really shows them. Anyways, so I think that anyone can do the same things in any other state and find the same information. I've heard of the same information in Colorado. The guy, Jim, that does that bonding video that I have uploaded, talks about that in Colorado.
Is that Jim Porter?
Yeah, Jim Porter, yeah. Anyways, you can probably do that in any state.
Oh, yeah.
This is state of Texas. This is an affidavit by Swank in 2008. He says, I, Daniel Lee Swank, affiant under Public Law 97-280, am competent. I have personal knowledge of the facts herein. And he retrieved the attached 2 pages of a Dun & Brad business background report regarding the for-profit corporation status of the judiciary courts of the state of Texas. I got a case dismissed in Arizona because I pulled. Remember that case I told you where they had that warrant issued and the sheriff pulled it up in there. Eventually, I got that thing dismissed. Okay, and what I did was I filed a demand to dismiss. Every once in a while, I'd come up with some new information, so I filed something into that court to get it dismissed. And eventually it disappeared. And the reason I know it disappeared is because I went and got a job. And when I got the job, I had to go through a background check. And I told them I need a copy of the background check. And when I got the background check, nothing was there. So what I did is I did the same thing in Arizona. Okay, now the report was newer, so I had to pay for it. I had to pay for the report. I had to pay $150 or something for this report. And so then I basically redacted information in there that was not necessary for purposes of my case. The point was that this court is a for-profit corporation. See what I'm saying?
See how Daniel Lee writes his name there? Daniel-Lee Swank.
Yeah. So, anyways, this is the Dun & Bradstreet Business Background Report for the Judiciary Courts of the State of Texas. Now, if I can get in closer, yes. I'll hold it now. No, I don't. Oh, there we go. There we go.
What's it say, 1845?
Yep. Started in 1845. That's when Texas joined the Union. The headquarters is the Supreme Court building. The top executive was, at the time, Thomas R. Phillips, Chief Judge of the Supreme Court. And it's a state court system, and it doesn't say it here, it'll say it in the next page. It's if you look down here, for-profit corporation in Texas, and it's incorporated in 1836, which is when the Republic of Texas was formed. And then it goes on. Business started in 1845 by the citizens. Thomas R. Phillips is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court since 1986, so that's more recent then, obviously. The operations, get a load of this. It's subsidiary of Texas, state of. Okay, so it's not the state of Texas. It's just state of Texas.
Right.
And started in 1845, it operates as a state government, intercompany relations, none reported by management. As noted, this company is a subsidiary of Texas, state of Inc. And there's a Dun & Bradstreet number and references made to that report for background information on the parent company and its management. The state court system, which includes the Supreme Court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, the courts of last resort, 14 courts of appeals, 80 judges, district courts with 386 judges, criminal district courts with 10 judges, and county level courts with 445 judges. Employees is 1,049 employees, which includes officers, 64 employed here, owns premises in a multi-story building, location central business section on Main Street. Branches, the department maintains 14 courts of appeal, 375 district level courts, and 420 county level courts. So that's the judiciary courts of the state of Texas. You don't think that's going on here in New Jersey?
Sure.
I guarantee you, you can get the same kind of thing for New Jersey.
I have an article that my brother saved, and it says 400 million was their take for the court.
Well, that's probably what they feel like showing.
I'm
It's
just
probably
saying, but it just made
a
the-
whole
because
bunch more than that.
It
So
proved,
daily, weekly, or monthly?
Yeah.
it proved the concept of the fact it is a corporation, they are making money.
Oh, huge money.
Anyways, this one here is the recording stamp for the county recorder, and the one on the other side is the certification. In June 6, 2008, it's a certification. So if the state of Texas does not exist, neither do its subsidiaries. And that Deer Park cash cow, you know, that's since 2007, right? Well, what was going on before then?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, eh? They're not telling us that.
Does Deer Park have any significance? I mean, is it a
No, I don't
city, a town?
No idea. Other than it's like a deer with his headlights, a deer in the
Yeah,
headlights, right?
yeah.
Pentagon Inc., Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon masquerading as private companies. This is going on all over the place. We got corporations, we got the government masquerading as private companies, and private companies masquerading as the government. Really, is what you got. It's going back both ways.
Crazy.
Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. That's U.S. Supreme Court in the case Downs versus Bidwell in 1901. I believe the Constitution was inspired by God, so I hold allegiance to the Constitution and the government set up by that, but I don't hold any allegiance to some corporation, some Roman cult corporation. Indiana and Company. 3,460,000 stockholders engaged in providing peace, justice, security, opportunity, health, highways, education, conservation, recreation. This certificate, every Indiana citizen is a stockholder in 4,300 school buildings, 9,168 miles of highways, 34 state parks and memorials, 19 state institutions, 4 colleges and universities, state library, state fair, and is entitled to services rendered by all state departments such as police, courts, health, securities commission, public service commission, social security, conservation, industry and labor services, insured bank deposits, and life insurance policies, etc.
What is that certificate for that
Stock in
state?
Indiana Incorporated.
Indiana and Company. Says right on it.
Indiana Company.
All the inhabitants.
This certifies that every Indiana citizen is the owner of a full share of the capital stock of Indiana Company.
That's what they get.
Own
That's their voting rights.
I want so much to.
Yeah, no,
Only
I
what
did
you
a
drive.
search for that in Ohio, and they said that every ballot, you're a shareholder. So I have that.
It's all martial law.
I have that from the Indiana State Library, all of it, the whole thing.
Well, see, as a corporation too, if the church is incorporated, you know, every member should be a shareholder in that corporation
They are,
as a tithe-paying member.
the state of, doesn't have to be tithe paying. The state of New Jersey is, by everyone is a stockholder of the corporation. If you allow them to become a member,
Like that.
they become a stockholder.
I mean, don't they?
Shareholder.
Well, as a shareholder of the corporation, you have certain specific rights.
Which are defined by the Book of Discipline, which they ignored.
No, not as a corporation.
That's a security.
That's totally different than the Book of Discipline.
No, because in the corporation papers, you only can incorporate as a Methodist church agreeing to abide by the bylaws.
Not on a state. I'd pull up I'd go to the Secretary of State and get the laws relative to corporations.
Okay, let's keep moving. This certifies that every Indiana citizen is the owner of a full share of the capital stock of Indiana and Company, and is transferable only on the books of this corporation. And I can't read some of this, but in witness hereof, this corporation is signed by the governor, 1938. So, you know, obviously, it seemed to me what happened is they set up corporations, all the citizens were owners, and then they put them into bankruptcy, and then in the bankruptcy, they wound up in the hands of the Roman cult, right? Because they don't do any of that today, and they don't tell anybody about it, so obviously no citizens own it now.
You know, I just received an email from the Columbus Metro Library, and they were sending me the email because I was a shareholder of the Columbus Metro Library.
Yes.
Really?
Just got that.
Yeah, that was
Is that
weird.
right?
And I had sent them a letter telling them to cancel, and they never did, obviously. But, yep.
And this is the report for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 1936 and ending June 30th, 1937, prepared by the Indiana Gross Income Tax Division, Indiana Department of Treasury Board, and notice in Canada they have a Treasury Board, and I'll bet you they've got one in the UK too. Anyways. So do you feel like you have no constitutional rights when it comes to income tax? It's because you don't. When the Constitution doesn't apply, where there's a contractual relationship with the corporation. And it's always, that's why they set up a separate corporation. Because then they can have plausible deniability. It's treason for the de jure government to get you into a contract by which you give up your rights. So they set up the second corporation with the same name, and it's not treason for them. It actually is, but it's a lot more complicated and harder for people to prove. And that's why Trump is making all the changes, quite frankly. The power, this is a maxim of law, this is why it is treason, even for the corporations. The power that is derived cannot be greater than that from which it is derived. So that's why they have to criminally convert citizenship into opposite of what the founders intended. That's exactly why they got to orchestrate something like a civil war and criminally convert citizenship into the opposite, right? Because before the Civil War, we were, if you read the court cases, this is why they have to establish the Cestacay Trust. Before the Civil War, it says here, this is case Colgate versus Harvey, U.S. Supreme Court. While the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon state citizenship. So prior to the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen was derivative and dependent upon being a state citizen. You could not be a U.S. citizen without being a state citizen first. After the 14th Amendment, it all got thrown up in the air. They had to turn it upside down, convert it into the opposite of what the founders intended. Had to make it voluntary. Citizenship is a political status and may be defined and privilege limited by Congress. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. All citizens of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory as is enjoyed by white citizens thereof to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, and convey real and personal property. That's current United States Code. There is in our political system a government of each of the several states, and the government of the United States. Each is distinct from the other and has citizens of its own. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. There is a clear distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship.
Didn't know what it existed.
You didn't?
I didn't.
Didn't know what.
Lots of court cases to talk about it. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. That's Jones versus Timmer, 1993. Citizenship of the United States does not entitle the citizens to privileges and immunities as citizens of the state, since privileges of one are not the same as the other. The privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the First 8 Amendments to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. U.S. citizens do not have access to the First 8 Amendments to the Constitution. The only absolute and unqualified right of a United States citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. The only absolute and unqualified right of a United States citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. And you want to run down a register to vote?
Can a descendant of a Puerto Rican couple that was born in Puerto Rico but born, say, in Philadelphia, does by virtue of your information...
Sounds like a lot of hearsay to me.
Just asking, confirming. That's what I thought you were
That's
going
just
to
a lot
say,
of hearsay to me.
Hearsay.
It's like I was telling him yesterday. I go by the tax on the hotel bills. You stay in that hotel for 30 days, and after 30 days, there's no more tax.
Got you.
And
30
the reason
days.
is because when you're physically on the land, you're a state citizen. I sent a registered letter to every member of the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on the Judiciary and every member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary in 2007 or 8 or 9, something like that. And I told them, you guys are perjuring your oath by calling these so-called illegal aliens because they're actually state citizens and they have more rights than anybody who thinks they're an illegal alien. And they came out on national TV and started calling them undocumented workers.
Wow.
This is Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. If you are subject to regulations, you are property. That is a slave. That's how they had slaves way back when. It was because they were considered property. You read those old court cases before the Civil War, where slavery was the issue, the debate in the case was always over property rights.
That comment you made about someone staying on the land, they go back to adverse possession of squatters' rights?
Sure, why not? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, it's common law.
Yeah,
Your physical
30
presence.
30 days is a short period of time.
In Roman law, status is everything.
Right.
In common law, status is nothing. They don't care about your status. Common law court, they couldn't care less. Status is nothing. This is Section 2 of the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. You think this is unique to America?
No.
Owned means subject to the regulations. Probably find similar things in England. I'll bet you can. This is D.C. Code. Chapter 854, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, approved March 3rd, 1901. And in section, chapter 56, section 1617, the 31 stat, 1432, it says the legal estate to be the sestica use.
Does anyone know what the translation of sestica means?
This is dead.
That means dead.
It's an estate.
It was declared in 1666, I believe.
Right. There's a Sestica v. Trust Act in 1666.
So is that Latin?
Yeah.
That was French. Wasn't that
It's
after
Roman cult.
No, I mean the words
It is. They're Latin words. It's taken from the Roman cult. It's Roman law. And at section 252, they presume you're dead. So it's automatic that they're dealing with dead things, the Sestica Trust.
The reason they did it is, well, I know there were other behind the reasons, but you may think the plague was a false flag, because after that they had so many dead and didn't know who was who that they registered this. That if after 7 years you didn't pop your head up and say, I'm still here, they declared you dead.
Yeah, but it was more than that, because beyond the seas, they're saying this, beyond the seas, anytime you go to sea, it's a contract. So you could be beyond the seas and still be here on the land, because they do contract law. They use, that's what motor vehicles, it's all admiralty. And so that's what they're doing is, and so when you go beyond the seas, that's admiralty. They're saying if you're going to be in a contract and basically give up your rights, then and if you don't show up for 7 years, then we'll presume you just want to stay that way till you do show up.
Here's your answer to the question. It's Sestake is not Latin, it's French. For he who lives.
Yeah, being in life.
Actually, French is tied into that too big time because it's French civil law.
Right. It is a legal term for an individual who is the beneficiary of a trust or insurance policy with rights.
Yep. More DC code, and this is a section 2 right up at the front. It says, be it further enacted that an interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed. Namely, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. This is a summary of In Re Boland's 1912. Every taxpayer is a Sestake trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. So if it's French, it's French civil law.
Right.
A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the Public Charitable Trust, the Constructive Sestake Trust of U.S. Inc., under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. And that's a summary of 5 pages of the congressional record. Boris talked about it. I use it all the time. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derives no benefit from the United States government have no bearing on his legal obligations to pay income tax. Unless the defendant can establish that he's not a citizen of the United States, the IRS possesses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability. You're a slave. If you're a corporation, then you're their property. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. This is the Roman cult, folks. For when they're driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks, and that's still to this day. It's Roman cult runs the courts.
Well, basically, that's just what I was saying before. You donate your property to the church, take it out of tax rolls. The church now becomes the owner, you become the beneficiary, you establish the trust and so doing.
Well, they're doing it for you, and then they're taxing you.
Exactly. That's the point.
To be bound in conscience to account to a Sestake use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mortmain. And a use is just short for a usufruct, just like Boris was talking about. A use is short for usufruct. That's all. So you're using it, you're putting the deed in the church's hand, and you're using it, or in the name of the Sestake Trust, or they are presuming that that's how you want to title the name until you tell them otherwise. It's all presumption, because it's martial law. This is Title 15, United States Code, Section 44, definitions. A corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts trust or association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And then it goes through the same definition without shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And let me just highlight this. Oh, I can't. Whoops. Yeah, okay, I can't. Anyways, a penal action is an action on a penal statute, an action for recovery of penalty given by statute. Where an action is founded entirely upon the statute, the only object of it is to recover a penalty or forfeiture. Such action is a penal action. The words penal and penalty in their strict and primary sense denote a punishment, as in Texas Penal Code, California Penal Code. Whether corporal or pecuniary, imposed and enforced by the state for a crime or offense against its laws. The noun penalty is defined forfeiture to be forfeited for non-compliance with an agreement. It's a contract. The words forfeit and penalty are substantially synonymous. It's all contracts. A penal action is one founded entirely on statute. The only object is to recover a penalty or a forfeiture imposed as a punishment for a certain specific offense, while a remedial action is one which is brought to obtain compensation or indemnity. A penal action, as in Texas Penal Code. I don't know, does New York have a penal code?
Yes.
Okay, New York Penal Code.
Yes.
They all, well, it's, in Arizona it's called a criminal code, but then they talk about all these penal issues. You know what I mean?
You know.
A penal action is a civil suit brought for the recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for an offense against the public. Such actions are civil actions, on the one hand closely related to criminal prosecutions, on the other hand to private injuries in which the party agreed may by statute recover punitive damages. It's all by statute. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract, a dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. And that's Chisholm versus Georgia, 1796. So the Revolution, the War of Independence, was fresh in everybody's mind. But individuals, when acting as representatives of a collective group, cannot be said to be exercising their personal rights and duties, nor be entitled to their purely personal privileges. Rather, they assume the rights, duties, and privileges of the artificial entity or association of which they're agents or officers, and they are bound by its obligations. So when that judge says, are you, and that's where you guys were talking, are you talking about the living man or the fiction? And that's good, I like that. But so we all got to start coming up with things like that. That's why I don't go in there, because I'm not going to play their little game.
Is it the living man or the legal name?
Or the legal name, that's right.
Right, either one.
Assumpsit.
Ah, there we go.
In its origin and action of tort, assumpsit was soon transformed into an action of contract, becoming afterwards a remedy where there was neither tort nor contract. Based at first upon an express promise, it was afterwards supported upon an implied promise and even upon a fictitious promise. I mean, these lawyers lay awake at night dreaming this stuff up.
Express promise.
Introduced as a special manifestation of the action on the case, it soon acquired the dignity of a distinct form of action which suppressed debt, became concurrent with account, with case upon a bailment. These are all commercial terms. A warranty, bills of exchange, and competed with equity in the case of essentially equitable quasi-contracts. They lay awake at night dreaming this stuff up. It's a quasi-contract. Remember, the penal statute has to do with agreement. Well, the agreement is a quasi-contract, is what it is. It's based on assumpsit. And if you don't know what's going on, they sell you into slavery. That's exactly what's going on, and they probably do anyways. That's the reason I don't go in there. Because I'm not a fiction. I'm not going to go in there where a fiction belongs in their court.
Well, if you don't go, they put a warrant on you. They come
It's
back
not
on
a
the
warrant.
Not true.
It's not a warrant. It's a capias. I file a criminal complaint against them for racketeering. But they don't know where to find me. I'm not saying you should do that because they probably know where to find you because you live in, a certain house. They don't know where to find me. Well, what? See, I have used a private mailbox for decades. Okay, so even when I lived in a house, I never put it down anywhere. Okay, the only address I have ever given them is my address. I'll give you my business card.
I don't receive mail at my place in New Hampshire.
When I had a house, I would padlock the mailbox.
Yeah.
Never get mail there. And I tell everybody that sent a mail there, my mailing address is here. If you don't send it here, I won't be getting it. This is my business card. That address is a private mailbox. I've only got 3 business, no, I got 4. So I'll pass them around. You can look at them.
Take a picture on the phone.
There you go.
Yeah, so they pass them around. I've got a bunch of them in Arizona, but they don't help me much here. You know what I mean? Kind of run low.
You can always receive mail at General.
That's a
Post
private
Office or
mailbox.
General Delivery.
I've got a private mailbox in Arizona and in Texas.
Post office.
What?
You have to go to the post office.
Yeah, you don't need a post office box.
Here,
That's
just
commercial.
report.
You can receive it at.
Tara
You're
just
just
pointed out,
addressed
she
as
said we
general
should get a
post
P.O.
office.
box.
They have to
to the
hold it.
post office.
They have to hold it for a minimum
Now
of 30
then,
days unless you.
Is there a
30
difference
Huh?
with
Unless
what
you
you're
instruct
talking
them
about as
otherwise.
being a private mailbox or a P.O. box? Or what?
Well, yeah, there is a difference. A post office box is a box at the post office.
Okay.
But there is and there isn't. Okay? A private mailbox is with a private company that has boxes. They usually have a notary there, and you get documents
UPS store.
notarized. UPS store is a good example.
Oh, good, okay.
Yes, mailboxes,
Now,
etc.
with the post office, people seem to think it used to be back in the 90s. The post office even came out with this regulation and started telling everybody, and even getting on my case, because they said you got to put PMB there, private mailbox. And I sent a registered letter to the Postmaster General and the local postmaster, and I said, I don't have to put anything on there because I am not a corporation, I'm not a person, and if you attempt to impose your regulations on me, you'll be guilty of sedition and treason. And all of a sudden, they didn't care about it anymore. It's amazing how that worked. So, and the same will be with the post office. Technically, with the post office, you're supposed to put post office box. But I know people that will put, if you have box 21102, they'll put down suite number 21102, and they'll go to the clerk at the post office and get the street address for the building, and they'll say this address. Okay, so it's really, if you're not involved in fraud, there's nothing they can do. And who's involved? I'm not involved in trying to fool anybody or lie to anybody. It's really nobody's business what that address is. And as far as the driver's license, that's got a private mailbox on it too. And on their form, it says you have to use your physical address. Well, their physical address is for their Sesticade Trust, so that's where it lives. It lives in that box.
The other thing, though, you wouldn't be able to do any online ordering technically because you would have to supply it.
I do it all the time. I do it all the time.
UPS stores will accept anything.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. 'cause
Yeah, they
when
sign for it.
send packages,
Okay.
they can receive them.
Yeah, they sign for it.
That's a good idea.
That's a nice thing I have in a UPS store.
Yeah, thanks.
They sign for it all the time.
Beautiful.
Now, it's a bit of a nuisance
Yeah.
having a physical address in a case like that, because then you got to be home sometimes to get it, because they won't give it to you unless somebody's there to sign for it. Whereas you have it sent to your private mailbox, there's always somebody there to sign for it.
Smart.
Anyways, constructive quasi-contracts are based solely upon the legal fiction of law. They have to substantiate. That's the reason they want government-issued IDs. That's the reason they want to get your birth date. That's the reason they want to get all your stuff, because they got to substantiate that Roman cult Sesticade Trust so they can assault you with their quasi-contract. They cannot assault a man or a woman with a quasi-contract. It's got to be that Roman cult Sesticade Trust. Voluntary acceptance of benefit of transactions equivalent to consent to all obligations arising from it so far as facts are known or ought to be known to person accepting it. A quasi-contractual action presupposes acceptance and retention of a benefit by one party with full appreciation of the facts under circumstances making it inequitable for him to retain the benefit without payment of its reasonable value. Couple points I want to make here. Under martial law, first of all, martial law supersedes and replaces common law. And so there's no common law. And that's why they have to pass all these codes, because murder is not illegal under martial law. So they have to make murder illegal. And assault is not illegal under martial law. Theft is not illegal under martial law. They have to pass all these statutes making all this stuff illegal, and if they don't have a statute, it's not illegal. I don't care about common law. That means nothing. Under martial law, it supersedes and replaces common law. There's the Declaration of Independence and the causes and necessities for taking up arms both talk about it. So that's why, and as I was looking for this, it was a site by, I think it was like, you know, one of the Roman emperors, Augustus or something. It was a site that said the more numerous the laws, the more corrupt the state. And that is so true. And that's why they have to impose martial law, because they get rid of that nasty little common law problem, and they can impose martial law. But if we, the people, start convening our common law juries, because there's 2 jurisdictions, we can still assert common law. But in the Matrix, they will never, ever see common law. That's the reason you will never, ever get justice at the hands of these Baal priests, because they will never, ever see common law. And they can do, the courts even talk about it. You go into these courts, and the judge will sit there and say, I can do anything I want in this court. And he can, because there's no common law. Normally, they're supposed to follow common law. Normally, equity is supposed to follow common law. But where there's no common law, they can do literally anything they want, and they do.
Common law demands personal responsibility.
Well, that's true. Common law demands payment. So when you file a lawsuit with Federal Reserve notes, you didn't pay for anything. So he can sit there and do anything he wants.
How about his oath?
Huh?
He took an oath. So that's fraud?
Are you gonna? You can try and enforce it. I mean, if you can get a common law jury, you might be able to enforce it. You going to go to one of his Baal priest buddies?
The other question is, what oath did he take? You don't know what his oath is.
And
They don't publish that.
No.
And
Well,
that's where
they do. It's supposed to be, they have to take the oath, and it must be subscribed, right? And it should be held with the Secretary of State. Now, recently, he's talking a few years back, they found that none of the judges in New York had taken an oath. So all their decisions were void, ab initio. And a lot of people just walked out of jail. All right? Matter of fact, they had the big lawsuit on that up there. You know? But I mean, you know, try to in Rhode Island, try to find their oaths.
Because
And their bond.
they're operating as clerk, not as judge, but they're pretending to be judge.
one of the things I wanted to point out about this deed in particular, usually what I do is I transfer the land to a structure that I manage. In this case, American Engineering Services LLC, which is, that's here. And then when I transfer it from the structure to me, I put the wording in, because he's right. The lawyers control all the wording, so they're not going to put wording in there that you want. And so I put the wording in that I want.
You're talking about when you're the grantee on the property, and then you turn around and rewrite another deed and change the grant with the grantee, and the way you spell the name on the grantee.
Spell the name, have the wording about the land patent, all that stuff. All that stuff. That's right.
So basically, if you got a property, you can just re-deed it, right?
Yeah,
Just create another deed.
you can actually deed it from yourself to yourself if you want.
Yeah.
But I prefer to have it deed from a structure to me, the man, and then that way I can control the wording in it. And none of these structures, I'm just an employee. Okay, American Engineering Services, I'm just an employee, is all I am. And it's owned by a trust and another LLC. So those owners are the ones that sign the deed, not me, and they deed it to me. So I'm not signing for all these positions. You see what I'm saying? Anyways.
So somebody else is signing the deed.
Yeah,
They're
of course.
granted to you and your natural name.
Yeah, exactly.
Your natural name.
So anyways, and another thing I wanted to bring up before the discussion went where it did, is that you've got to have martial law for these quasi-contracts. Okay, if there's no martial law, there's no quasi-contracts. That's another reason why they want to impose martial law, because, again, see the word inequitable. Okay, to him to retain the benefit without payment of its reasonable value. You know, jail's a benefit. It is. It is. So they're selling you into slavery, and they collect the money from the Sesticate Trust account. And you're getting a benefit. You get all that free room and board. I mean, what more do you want?
Medical.
Better food.
Yeah.
There's not for human
Well, they don't want to do that. That would ruin the illusion.
Oh, Joe Arpaio only give him baloney.
In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract, a dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. They're nothing but a bunch of thieves, okay? And I'd really like to see a bunch of them get their necks stretched. He, the prisoner, has, as a consequence of his crime, not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law in its humanity affords him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. They literally sell you into slavery.
In our monetary system.
In the Bible, in Deuteronomy 24:7, it says, if a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, maketh merchandise of him or selleth him, then that thief shall die. You know, I don't know how many of you consider yourself Christians, but, you know, we've been letting this stuff go for so long, and we have a duty to put a stop to it, and we're going to be held accountable. Anyways, what were you saying?
Yeah, in a debt-based monetary system, you have to understand that when a society accepts a debt-based monetary system, they can't be let out of debt. Okay? So you must ensure that the successive generation goes into debt. Point one. The largest single most factor that funds and supports our monetary system are mortgages.
Yes.
That's the largest base for
why
the
they
debt.
always increase the house prices.
Right.
The second thing in the market, generally, that increases in value. Everything else, as soon as you buy it, goes down in value. Houses don't.
The second largest are prison bonds.
Yeah.
You know, and they're processed on a secondary market just like the mortgages are. But that's done through, and listen to the name, Payne Webber, Web of Payne, Merrill Lynch. Those are the guys that handle the bonds. Okay? The same thing I have to do to monetize a, $25 million bag of gemstones is the exact same thing I have to do to make merchandise of the souls of men. Right? I have to take, get an appraisal. First I have to charge, right? You've got to pay your debt to society. That's the court procedure.
Yeah.
But I have to get an appraisal, the value of the bond. I have to put those gemstones in a secured vault with 24-hour security, right? Everything is patterned exactly the same way as what I have to do with the value of a human body to monetize that over an extended period of time. And how long ago was it where they made the sentences mandatory? To stabilize the bond, so the bond could be, because you can't have one sentence saying this, another one sentence that. So they made the sentences mandatory, so the value of the bonds would be more stable.
Yeah. They are putting things into jail. You're converting yourself by saying, I'm a U.S. citizen, or giving them evidence of it. You're saying, I'm a thing.
Right.
They're not putting men or women into jail.
They're putting people who agree to go in jail.
Right, you're right.
Vid.me shut down.
Yeah.
Vid.me shut down on 15 December. A YouTube channel called Sovereignty International is deleted. I made the exclusive content available on my website. I have 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. $29.99 a year is the donation level for the videos only, and $49.99 a year is the donation level for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But there are limits on the unlimited consultations because I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. No, I meant a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. And people on previous subscription plans will remain on that plan as long as they renew it. But you got to renew it. The unlimited consultations does not include phone calls, babysitting, or preparing documents or reviewing documents. So again, there are limits. And babysitting would be like 15 emails every day. Stuff like I mentioned earlier. Should I get witnesses to sign this, or should I get it notarized? Don't ask me those kinds of questions. That's, if you don't know, then you need to study. it's really a personal preference. The only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. But I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people knowing the law, knowing what to do, what the issues are, and knowing, bringing the action and convening our common law juries. That's really where I need people. And so I am currently publishing a video a week. The top link is my page, my web page, where you can actually go, and there'll be links to all the videos. I won't say all of them, but most of them, organized by topics. So you can study them by topics. It's a lot easier than trying to do it on YouTube, because YouTube doesn't have any page where they're organized like that. And so they're just...
Yeah.
Sorry?
No, that's right.
Anyways, and then the second link is where subscribers can log in. Some of the exclusive content, I have a bar members attorneys number 4. I have an Arlington private information share that's like 9 videos by itself. Land deed training, that's a couple videos. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration training, criminal complaint training. I've actually got a couple criminal complaint training videos, and there'll probably be more. I don't have any lawsuit training videos up because I'm working on it, and there'll probably be, several of them. And other training. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my 2 private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups. And so if you want to subscribe as a donation, it's appreciated. It's a modest donation, there's no doubt, but a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up. Anyways, and all the exclusive content's available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. Democracy, fake laws, false arrest, feel free. You are the property of Rome. You're a Roman document of ownership. Cash cow pawn, or cash cow. Sorry?
Deer Park cash cow.
Deer Park cash cow, that's it. Death by government, 145 million in the 20th century. Private murders, 8.5 million in the 20th century. When the government actually does something better than the private sector. Government is the undisputed champion of murder.
Yeah, that's true.
The tyrant, who in order to hold his power suppresses every superiority, does away with good men, forbids education and light, controls every movement of the citizens, and keeping them under perpetual servitude, wants them to grow accustomed to baseness and cowardice, has his spies everywhere to listen to what is said in the meetings. Gee, that sounds like Google and Facebook, and has and spreads dissension and calumny among the citizens, and impoverishes them, and is obliged to make war in order to keep his subjects occupied and impose on them a permanent need of a chief. And that's Aristotle. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. Order followers, the servants of evil, you assist an evil system most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good person will resist an evil system with his or her whole soul.
Hence my, no, I'm not arresting that drunk.
Sorry?
Hence I am not arresting that drunk.
There you go, yeah, right, that's good. That's good, yeah, he wasn't caught hurting anybody. Order followers are the ones that keep the system of slavery into place. Mark Passio, and we already saw this one. What is proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety and circumstances of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. That's Attorney General's opinion, February 3rd, 1857. The more numerous the laws, the more corrupt the state. And that's Cornelius Tacitus. Fascism, which should more properly be called corporatism, because it is the merger of state and corporate power. Under common law, you're presumed to have common law rights. Under martial law, you're presumed to be one of the slaves. Whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, the trier of fact must find the existence of the fact unless and until evidence is introduced that sort supports a finding of its non-existence. And that's UCC 1-206, and that's the same thing. in an action with respect to an instrument, the authenticity of an authority to make each signature, so they forge your signature onto a contract to sell you into slavery is what they do. The authority to make each signature on the instrument are admitted unless specifically denied in the pleadings. If the validity of the signature is denied in the pleadings, the burden of establishing validity is on the person claiming validity, but the signature is presumed to be authentic and authorized. The following rules apply in an action on a certificated security against the issuer. They go and forge your signature onto a contract and securitize it and sell it on Wall Street. There's people that have found their criminal cases at Fidelity Investments. Unless specifically denied in the pleadings, each signature on a security certificate or in a necessary endorsement is admitted. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to click the bell. That's the front page and the bell. International law adopted for areas of federal legislative jurisdiction. See, they're going and they're using the international law. Federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory, but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discusses civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal laws, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws. And a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court under, the D.C. Code. And that's taken from the federal areas, jurisdiction over federal areas within the states, report for the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the Law of Legislative Jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress can give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington, District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, that's military dictatorship, nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating a citizen's wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. That's U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. Check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3, Roman Called Slave Scam Series, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through 4, How Not to Volunteer Yourself, How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service in the Draft, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself No Sales Tax, Do-It-Yourself Traffic Stop, actually 1 through 5 now, Do-It-Yourself Free Mail, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 15. There are no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command are crimes. And so what they're saying is the United States is under martial law. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. So, again, they're saying Texas is under martial law. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. Everything's an admiralty, a root of error doth not lie upon a sentence in admiralty, but an appeal. And that's citing Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, but they're citing Book 4 of the Institutes on the Laws of England, which is Coke in the 1500s. That's why you see all these courts of appeals all over the place. All appeals are taken in admiralty. That's why it's called a court of appeals. It's the same thing that precipitated the War of Independence. Exactly the same thing. You read the Declaration of Independence and the causes and necessities for, there it is. Causes and necessities for taking up arms. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial.
All appeal courts are admiralty?
Yeah. That's why they're called the Court of Appeals. It's all admiralty.
I mean, the scriptural basis, you had a hierarchy in law. If a lower judge couldn't handle it, it went up into a higher level.
It's called the Court of Appeals because it's admiralty.
That's interesting.
It's contract. That's why you have to pay the fee.
That.
It's all contracts.
Yeah.
We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. And that's Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. despotism. That's military dictatorship. In the meantime, the civil law, which is the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, was largely of